Welcome back to day 7. So we're going to talk about the tonic labyrinth reflex, an important reflex which in some populations seems virtually endemic. So the tonic labyrinth reflex it's linked to your vestibular nerve in your inner ear, and the tonic labyrinth reflex sends sensory information from the brain regarding the spatial position of the body. It's triggered when the head tips back and forth. So in a child, when starting to learn to crawl, there's a huge amount of this kind of movement as it learns to manipulate its head and it starts manipulating the body. It influences the tone in your muscle in the front and the back of the body, and it can affect your postural control. It can also affect how the eyes move up and down. So if you think about a child working and you want them to focus on what's on the desk and you want them to focus on the board and desk and board. So the eyes are doing a lot of up and down. And if you've got a tonic labyrinth reflex present, that's going to cause you problems. It ensures the body can balance at all times. So it's really important you're getting that sense of balance sorted. And children who have a persistent tonic labyrinth reflex are going to have problems with being clumsy because they don't know where they are in space. They can't keep their balance. They fall all over everything. So remember that inner ear, and it's really important we understand the vestibular system in the inner ear plays a vital role. Even though we can't touch it, it's important we know what's in there and how our muscle system and sound therapy can move it. And we want to move and agitate it through doing exercises and through doing sound therapy. So here we are, the image of what to do if you've got retained tonic labyrinth reflex. This is testing for it. And I have, as usual, stolen a picture from elsewhere. This is a nice picture, the only nice one I could find actually, of a child showing exactly what to do. So then they start out, they're lying flat on the floor. And then you ask them to raise their arms up off the floor, their legs off the floor, their whole leg, so they're like flying on their tummy, and their head is going back. So it's like a backwards flying motion. And the child holds that, and you count to 10 and see how they get on with it. If they can't keep both legs straight and hands up, the reflex is most likely there, present and retained. You also ought to, when they're manoeuvring around, watch how their feet work. If they've got problems with toe walking, it's a pretty good indication we've got a problem with retained TLR. If their postural control doesn't look good, I always ask people to do TLR. I'm so worried by the state of modern children. Very few of them I see have good core strength, but I push everyone to do TLR. I find it's very good for just pushing everything to a really good state. So I think it ought to be compulsory in the primary school curriculum. And I think we ought to go on doing it throughout life, particularly after shocks and particularly to prevent age-related problems. Because I can tell you, if you can maintain a good TLR and a good core strength doing the exercises, you have far fewer problems related to your frame and postural control and damage you do to your joints, etc., as you get older. So, great list of problems that occur with retained tonic labyrinth reflex. As we said, poor balance, poor spatial awareness, your muscles and your toe walking are a problem. You have difficulty holding still because if your eyes don't work and your sense of where you are in space and balance aren't working, it's like being on a ship. And the muscle tone and posture are pretty awful. And it's really hard to pay attention if when your head goes up and down, your eyes can't make the adjustment necessary. Your whole system isn't really adjusting. And so that makes it really hard. It'll impact on reading, it'll impact on concentration. It makes a retained tonic labyrinth reflex makes you look like, you've got an issue with understanding things in space. You're going to have a poor sense of rhythm and be constantly bumping into things. But you can sort it out, and that is what we ought to be doing with children, at least trying, before we label them anything. So, a challenging move. We need to do 2 exercises to sort out tonic labyrinth reflex. The first one is a thing called a meatball exercise. And you can see there is massive resistance in this exercise. Once you have mastered it and done it for 40 days, you've got it. And therefore, we ought to maintain it. So you start out, you're lying flat on the floor, the child's got their hands by the sides, their feet are in and legs are in inverted V shape, and they're just lying there. You're going to ask them to cross their arms across their chest. They are literally placed there. They're not grabbing, they are placed. They are resting. They are turned off. They're not doing any work at all. Because what we want to do is isolate the tummy muscles. We want to get the really deep tummy muscles working very well. We're going to ask the child to come up so that they're forming the bottom shape, the meatball. They're going to find that really hard. So the sorts of things you can do to help them are things like putting cushions underneath, and so they're not making the full movement. You can hold their feet and help them. You can support them into the meatball position, so they can hold that position once they're up, and then get the feel of it for a count of a few seconds, and then release, and so on. It is something you're going to build up to. It is not something somebody naturally has, particularly if they've got weak muscle tone. And so it might take you 30 days to get to the stage where the child can come off the floor, really using their tummy muscles. So I get my clients to always come with the upper body first, slightly in advance of the limbs. So I want to see that it is the tummy muscles they're pulling on first, and that they're really using those deep core muscles, and that they're coming in and they're holding that position. And my aim is to get them to hold it for a count of 15. So they're in that bottom position, and I am counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12, 13 and 14 and 15. Then I want them to go slowly out of that position. If they just collapse, they have not mastered it. They've got to be able to come up into the position in a controlled manner and go out of it in a controlled manner. When they control it, you can see a jump in their spatial skills. The opposite of meatball is Superman. This time you're using the muscles in the lower back. You are going to lie face down. I personally would like the child not to have shoes on, because I want the feet really pointing outwards, and I find the shoes, particularly modern shoes, too heavy, bulky, interfere. You've got the legs together and really straight, and they're going out and up. The arms are out and above the ground, and the head is back. So like Superman, flying along, and really it's the tummy that is on the floor and not much else. And if the child's doing this well, they are feeling their back muscles, deep, deep back muscles, having to work to hold them in that position. And again, it is hard work to get them to the point they can keep their arms together, their legs together, pointing straight out, their head up, and they can do it for a count of 15. So you're going to have to stage it up, get them to feel the position, control the position, and so on. But it makes significant differences when you can do it. So you basic catch up, be diligent, slow, thorough. Much better to do that really thorough, because we need to maintain this. And I would say a maximum of 3 repetitions a day. It's a very hard move. And for at least 40 days. They've got to be doing it well for 40 days. So all the preceding learning to do it is just learning to do it. And once you've completed this, you still have a child whose eyes don't know how to work properly together. So we need to do some eye exercises, whose feet and ankles probably don't work properly, whose legs don't work properly with the hips, and we may have a problem with flat feet. All of those things need sorting out as well. But we can't sort any of those things out until we sort out the tonic labyrinth reflex. So you can see it's really pivotal. It's like a sort of crucial knot that if we're not in place, we can't get the next layers up in place. We wrote, for your joy, a book called Developing Motor Skills, and it can be bought directly from us. We were very controlling over our publication of it precisely because we wanted to say precisely what we wanted to say and show parents that these were the motor skills developments that needed to be made by every single person between 4 and 7 years of age. So if you buy it when you've got a 4-year-old, you've got 3 years work there. If you're buying it for an older child, you ought to be aiming to get through everything and master it in 12 months. But then you need to keep maintaining higher level skills. Here are my contact details and those of Tomatis, who sells sound processing equipment, which I think is very good and complements the kind of work I'm doing. Thank you very much for listening, and I shall see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.